Hey there, welcome to the channel. My name's Greg. Today I'm going to show you how I made this duck salami. Let's get into it. So for my duck salami, I'm actually going to use pork fat because the duck fat is just too soft to stay together. It's not going to be the texture I'm going for in a salami. And I'm just going to cut this into pieces that are going to fit well into my grinder. I'm also going to add just a little bit of pork. If you want to just use all duck, go right ahead. I'm using about 10% pork. And the rest of what I have here is duck. And what I have is trim off of some carcasses. I would actually recommend using duck breast, but I use my duck breast for some other things. This is my trim. I did freeze it right away, but it's not advisable to use trim for salami. All right, I'm gonna stick this in my freezer until it firms up a little bit. Be right back. I'm gonna get my spices together for my duck salami. I always start with my peppercorns and whole seeds. Today I'll be using some black pepper, a little bit of coriander, a little bit of allspice. Start with my seeds because I like to toast them. Just kind of wakes them up, gets the most out of them. While those start toasting, I'll weigh up a few cloves. Whoa, not that much. Set these aside. I'll just toast those real lightly when the other things are almost done. Cloves can burn pretty easy. Now I'll start weighing everything else, starting with my salt. I'm going to use some cure number 2 because I anticipate this salami is going to take a couple months to dry. Anything over 30 days, I like to use a cure 2. Gives the nitrate time to convert to nitrite and become available. Less than a month, the nitrate really is not available. I'm going to go in with some dextrose so the starter culture has some food to eat. It's that process of the bacteria consuming the sugars that creates the lactic acid and lowers the pH. One of the safety hurdles for this salami. I got to go add those cloves real quick. Now I got my salt cure, food for bacteria. Time to go in with some flavor. Go with some marjoram. That's a nice herb to go with duck. Some granulated garlic. Could use garlic powder. I just prefer the granulated garlic. And just a touch of nutmeg. Let me go grind up those spices that are toasting. There's my spices for my duck salami. Add my duck and my pork in the freezer. It's partially frozen here. And I got my fat. It's also partially frozen. I'm gonna grind the fat first because I want to keep it separate. Oh, and I'm using my 4.5mm die. So stick this away in the refrigerator. And I'll put this in. And I'm just gonna make a handful. Run that through. Hope that pushes out the rest. Now I'm going to take some brandy. I've had this in my freezer. My meat is still below 34 degrees. Going to add my brandy. Going to mix that in so that it soaks into all the meat. Going to cover that with a little bit of plastic here. Keep it from oxidizing any. And I'm going to stick that back into my refrigerator. Like I said, I'm going to let that brandy soak in the meat for an hour or two. Get you in a little bit. About 15 or 20 minutes before I want to make my salami, I'm going to mix up a starter culture. I'm using Flavor of Italy. The thing I don't like about this, there's no directions on back. It doesn't say what temperature it wants to ferment at. It doesn't say what organisms are in here. But I do actually really like this culture. It's a very fast fermenter, which is why I'm using it for this duck salami. Because duck, yeah, the meat is red color, but it is poultry. So I added about a 1/4 teaspoon of culture, and I'm going to put in just shy of a 1/4 cup of water. I'll just give that a quick little mix. And I'll let that rehydrate and start getting active. Like I said, 15 or 20 minutes before I'm ready to stuff my salami. I've had this in the freezer for about 15 minutes. It's been a couple hours or so since I soaked that meat in the brandy. Now I'm going to add my fat, my salt and spice mixture, and my rehydrated starter culture, flavor of Italy. Now, just going to mix this till it's sticky and gooey and very well combined. Now, I will say this is looking a little more like a sausage batter than a salami batter. Because I added so much liquid, this is coming together pretty quick. The looser the batter, the quicker it comes together. And I can tell because I can see these little strands starting to reach out. And it's starting to stick pretty good to my hand. Lift my bowl. But I think I can get this to be even more furry than it is right now. If I just go another 30 seconds or so. All right, this is getting there. This is lifting my bowl. It's trying to rip my gloves off. I can get a big handful to stick, no problem. And you can see starting to have some really long strands reaching out. So I'm going to say this is ready to stuff. I'm going to grab some of my batter, a handful at a time, and I'm just going to shove it in here, try to get any air out. All right, going to move the camera around, get my stuffer out. Back in a second. I like to give this a little shot of oil. Just make sure I rub that around the whole thing. I'm going to be using these protein-lined clear casings, 61 millimeter, but you could use whatever size you want. Just know a bigger casing is going to take longer to dry, and a narrower one will take less time to dry. Always lube up the horn. Helps everything slide better. These are pre-tied casings, so I don't have to put a knot on that end. That's nice. And then I'm just going to slide that on. Move this other one out of the way. Take my sterilized sausage pricker and put a couple holes in the end to let any air out that may be in that end. Now I'm just going to stuff. And I want to get this pretty tight. No need to burst the casing or anything, although these are pretty durable. And I'm just kind of going for two smaller salamis. I think if I try to put it all in one, it won't all fit. So I think the other one will be a little bigger, which is fine. Got my tool for clearing out the horn. Can use pretty much anything, a wooden spoon or whatever. Although with this wider horn, this tool really does work well, much better than the spoon. Yeah, I'm gonna pull some out of this hopper and shove it in there too. Although I want to leave some so I can test my pH with that. Now I'm just gonna twist this up, get it nice and tight. While I'm still holding that, with one hand, I'm gonna tie a knot with my other hand. Just an overhead knot. Sometimes I go over one extra time. Pull that tight and put another knot on top of it to hold that first one down. Keep the string from just sliding right off of here. Gonna fold it over. Put another knot over here. And that should do it. Although if you're worried, you could always go back and put one more on the other side. I sometimes do that, but I didn't leave enough tail here. But what you can see that does, creates this little nub. So this can't slide off, creates that point of friction to hold it tight. Now I'm going to come by with my sterilized sausage pricker. Put a bunch of holes in this. That's going to help release some moisture. You can already see pushes the liquid and fat out those holes, and that will seal the holes. Same thing happens when you prick sausages. They'll say, oh, then you just lose all the grease, but no, you don't. I find you just get a better bind with your casing. So I'll do that other one, but first I want to show you, I kept a little bit of a ball from my hopper. And I'm going to wrap that up in plastic. And this is how I'm going to test my pH. I'll often use a bigger ball, so it's big enough to actually dry. If I dry this, it'll dry real fast. I used cure number 2. I don't really want to heat the nitrate before it can convert to nitrite and nitric oxide. So I probably won't do anything with this. Before I start these fermenting, I'm going to get a weight and write it down. Covering this with some plastic. That's going to help keep that humidity really high, which is what they need to ferment. Need a humidity close to 90% or above. Now I'm just going to stick that in my oven with the light on, and that keeps it 90 degrees or so, even a little warmer. I only know from experience and practice what the flavor of Italy tends to like, because unfortunately, it doesn't say anything on the package. Anyway, into the oven. It's been 24 hours, and my duck is right around 5. That's pretty much what I was going for, right around 5. Anything below 5.2, some say 5.3. Anywhere below that is safe to eat. The lower it is, the tangier your salami will be. So pH is one way. You can make the salami your own. Now I'll be putting my tags on these. I don't like to put them on until after I ferment because they get slimy and weird. But I did write down the notes, and it's obvious which one is which. Look, you can really see, if you look close, I mean, you can see the meat starting to push itself out of those holes, the meat and the fat. I'm going to give these a little bit of cold smoke before I put them into my drying chamber. So I'll catch you in a minute here. I've got my duck salami hanging here with my smoke tube to just give it a nice little stream of smoke for a good long while. You can use whatever type of chips you want. I'm using some cherry. And I'm just going to give this a little kiss of smoke now that it has fermented. And yeah, check back in a while. After smoking these duck salamis for about 12 hours a day for 5 days in a row, they've been living in my drying chamber here. The drying chamber stays about 55 degrees Fahrenheit and roughly 80% humidity. And these duck salamis have lost 40% of their weight. They're ready to come out. And it's that smoking that has kept the mold from growing. Because you can see, next to these truffle-infused saucisson d'Arles, obviously have a very healthy growth of Penicillium algiavensis. Lamb prosciutto also has some that's jumped onto it. Penicillium has jumped onto this, which is farther away than this. But this does not have any of it on it because it was smoked. And for some reason, that smoking process keeps the mold off most of the time. So anyway, let's take these out, give them a taste. Well, I'm pretty curious as to what these look like inside. That's looking great. Oh my goodness. This smells amazing. Kind of surprised how soft it feels considering it's reached its 40% weight loss. But I'm guessing that's just the texture of the different type of protein using the duck. I've never had a duck salami. Really any poultry salami for that matter. Definitely got some fat in it. All right, let's look inside of this. All right, the time's come. Let's see what this is all about. You can see it really doesn't appear to have a dry ring around it. Appears to be pretty uniform across. You know, the salami only took 5 weeks, which is pretty quick for 61 millimeter diameter. I think the reason it dried so quick is that duck, poultry in general, has a relatively high water content to start. Flavors of this are like fall flavors. You know, duck is pretty common, Christmas duck, stuff like that. So I guess it makes sense to have fall flavors. It's got a good texture, a good bite. It's holding together great. Let's give it a taste. You know, based on how much color this took on during the smoking process, I was a little worried this might be overly smoky, but it's not. It has just the right amount of smoke. It's just a kiss of smoky flavor. Those flavors are really coming through with the nutmeg and the cloves, allspice. I think I could have used a little cinnamon too. That would have made a nice touch, just a little bit. But man, this is really good. Kind of surprised it's so rich feeling. It's almost more rich than an all pork salami. I'm calling this smoked duck salami a success. I would definitely make it again. That said, I don't really eat a lot of duck. It's pretty expensive. So I don't know when I'll get the chance to make it again. But if you're a hunter and you hunt duck, or even geese, geese are a lot like duck. They're a red-fleshed bird. I would recommend giving it a try. If you liked this video, learned anything, found it entertaining, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. If you're still watching this video at this point and you're not subscribed to my channel, what the hell are you doing? Subscribe. You probably like a lot of my other content. It helps me get more views on YouTube, makes it more likely I can continue to make these videos. Whatever you do, put some love into the food you're making. Peace.